a lot happening in the NFL in the last 48 hours revolving Lamar Jackson. We can get into it right now, but it seems like he's requested a trade. And that has been going on for a month. And things are heating up. And now we know that he will not be a Raven. At least that's what it seems like. Can things be saved? I don't know. And Aaron Rodgers is still not a New York Jet. We assume he's going to be. It's a tough free agency for Miami Dolphin fans. I think personally, I don't know how you guys feel, but I wanted to go into the specifics of tight ends and the tight ends in Miami Dolphin history. Mike Gesicki, he was a fan favorite. We knew we were going to lose him, but to go to the Patriots, was that the only team offering him something? Or like this is the part that, listen, what I know about Mike Gesicki is we know he's from Jersey, so he probably grew up a Giants fan. Maybe he grew up a Jets fan. I don't know. He went to Penn State, but maybe in Jersey he grew up a Patriots fan. Who knows? I don't know what his favorite team was, but I gotta assume there was more than just New England throwing him offers. I would love to see who else was put out offers for Mike Gesicki, because there's got to be some integrity of being like, it's the same contract. Listen, if you have 4 teams offering you the same contract, you just don't take the Patriots because you're a Dolphin. You're a Dolphin for life. We drafted you, and you had 5 unbelievable. You had 4. Was it 4? You have 5 great years with us. 5 great years. As a personality on the team. Not so great last year and your rookie year, but the 3 years in between were unbelievable. And I know what you're saying. You're like, what are you talking about? If you're Mike Gesicki, you're going, hey, where am I going to go and have the best year to where I can get a big contract or a long-term contract? And maybe that's New England. And I truly wish him the best in New England. As much as we don't like the Patriots, I believe that, for me, they are the most hated team in our division because of what we had to go through for 20 seasons. For me, it's the Patriots above the Jets. I do hate the Jets, but I hate the Jet fans. I hate Jet fans more than I hate the Jets. Okay? I hate the Patriots for everything they stood for and what they represented, and they were so annoying, and the arrogancy of New England. I hated it. Don't mind the fans so much. It's more the team and the franchise. I actually root for the Bills and Josh Allen. Big fan of Josh Allen. But, obviously I want the Dolphins to succeed and win the division, and I think they can this year. Not that what this episode's going to be about. I'm not going to go into predictions or what I think is going to happen next year, or if I'm back on the Tua train. Am I? Probably not. But, I have to be, because we're not getting Lamar Jackson. Let's just start with that. It's not happening. And I'll tell you why it's not happening. 1, we don't have the draft capital to trade for Lamar. And 2, one of the reasons we never came out and said we're not interested in Lamar in the first place, when people are like, why would teams do that? I don't know why other teams did that, but we have to with Tua. If you're rolling with Tua for one more year, you can't behind the scenes make an offer for Lamar and then the Ravens match that, and then that news gets leaked to Tua, and then he can't handle that. So that's just my belief on it, and that's my belief why some other teams might have not done it, like the Vikings or something. But as far as the Colts or the Falcons coming out and saying we are not interested in Lamar, that shit is crazy. Because if I'm the Colts, I know we've been chasing a lot of vet quarterbacks. Lamar's kind of like a very new vet. He's only 5 years into the league. I'm doing everything to get him. Imagine having him and Jonathan Taylor together. Also, Atlanta seems like a perfect fit. The culture, the way they run the ball, supposedly the offensive coordinator over there. That being said, I wanted to kind of go in and list my top 5 tight ends in Miami Dolphin history. And this is strictly off opinion. This isn't stat driven. This isn't by any means anyone else's list. And I can understand if people will be upset about this list, but I'm going to give you legitimate arguments about why I think these 5 guys are the top 5 tight ends in Miami Dolphin history. And when I say Miami Dolphins history, as an organization, Miami Dolphins history. Starting with number 5, I got to go with Joe Rose. And I know you guys were like, what? did he play like 2 seasons or something? I don't even know how many seasons he played. But Joe Rose, I do have his stats, career numbers, might blow your mind. 1,493 yards receiving on 13 TDs. Now imagine doing that in one season. That's a Pro Bowler right there, if not one of the greater tight end seasons ever. That's what he did in his career. But it's about what Joe Rose represents as the Miami Dolphins. I think eventually you'll see his name in the Ring of Honor for what he represented and what he was to Miami Dolphins culture. Me being a fan, growing up in South Florida, Joe Rose was one of the biggest names in the organization. He started off as the radio broadcaster for 560 WQAM. He's who you would listen, call the games, and now he's one of the commentators on TV for the Dolphins. So he's been a part of the organization for as long as I've been alive, 38 years, and he is the face of the Dolphins and the media side of the Dolphins. And I've even had the opportunity of meeting him. But him and Kim Bokamber are two personalities that have called Miami Dolphin games for years. So Joe Rose playing tight end, he just deserves to be in the top 5 tight ends in Miami Dolphin history because of who he was and who he still is for the Miami Dolphins. So out of respect for, growing up as a Dolphin fan, I have to put Joe Rose in my top 5. It's kind of like if you have a top 5 rappers, you have to have Biggie or Tupac in your top 5. Now, you might have 5 guys you like more, but out of respect, you got to have Tupac or Biggie because if Biggie doesn't die, he's arguably going to be the best because he was making unbelievable music. And you could argue that with Tupac, okay? So Joe Rose is coming in at number 5. Number 4 for me is arguably the most successful tight end in Miami Dolphins history. He is, actually. It's Keith Jackson, and he's part of the Dan Marino era. So how could you leave it out? He was a big weapon for Dan Marino. He ended his career with over 5,000 yards receiving and almost 49. He had 49 touchdowns receiving, which is a lot. Because, listen, if you get 100 touchdown receptions, you pretty much you check off a Hall of Fame list. Kind of the Hall of Fame criteria to get into the Hall of Fame is 100 touchdowns. If you do that, and if you do 10,000 yards receiving, that helps. And if you do 10,000 receptions, if you can do any of those numbers, you're going to get 1,000 receptions. 1,000 receptions, 10,000 yards, 100 touchdowns. If you can hit one of those numbers, that helps your argument in getting into the Hall of Fame on top of obviously Super Bowls. But Keith Jackson, very valuable number, the most successful Dolphin tight end in history, played with Marino. That's why he's at 4. Some of you might be like, why is he not at 1, 2, or 3? Because this is for me. I'm 38, and I started watching football when Keith Jackson was on his way out. So there's only a few years of me remembering him, and I don't have any unbelievable memories of Keith Jackson making unbelievable plays. So that's why I have him at 4. I recognize what he's done for the Miami Dolphins, but again, it's just kind of shown respect that he is the most successful tight end in history, which is not that bad. I mean, I would think if you look around at all 32 NFL franchises, I would say less than 5 or 6 of them have 10,000 yards receiving tight ends. I mean, the Chiefs obviously do, and then, the Broncos with Shannon Sharp, however you want to do that. He was a Raven. Tony Gonzalez also went to the Falcons. So there's a lot of Antonio Gates, the Chargers. So where does Keith Jackson even stand in history of tight ends? He might be a top 50 or 25 tight end of all time. I don't know. I'd have to do the research, and maybe I should have done that before doing this episode. My bad. Number 3 is going to be Anthony Fasano. Okay. Anthony Fasano was on the Dolphins post-college for me. I remember living in Fort Lauderdale. He was always at Blondie's on the weekends during the offseason, seeing him around, knowing he probably knew some of the people I went to school with. We were around this, it's around the same age. He's probably close to my age. I could look it up right now. 38. What did I say? I said he's probably my age, same age as me. Isn't that crazy? He's a 38-year-old guy. So Anthony Fasano, he ended up having 3,200 yards receiving, 36 touchdowns. A lot of touchdowns for us, though. That was exciting. That was exciting. He was a touchdown machine. He was used correctly. Number 2, the number 2 top tight end in Miami Dolphins history for me, Randy McMichael. I don't know if you guys remember him, but if you've been watching the Dolphins for a long time, you definitely remember him. He was the first personality of when tight ends started having personalities in the NFL, okay? He is kind of during my college years. It's like you're starting to see some stardom. There's Tony Gonzalez in the league, Antonio Gates. Randy McMichael, never a Pro Bowler, but was a big weapon in our offense a lot of the years. He ended his career with 4,500 yards receiving, over 4,500, which I believe is second most in Miami Dolphins history. So, and he had 24 touchdowns. Not great in the touchdown situation, but he was a personality. He came from Georgia. He was a big weapon. He was a big target. Loved everything about him. And he was an exciting player that I always was excited to use in Madden. And I have a lot of great memories with Randy McMichael. I remember enjoying him a lot. I think he was kind of part of that era with Chris Chambers. You know, if we ever do a top 5 wide receivers, which we can do next, Chris Chambers is going to be up there. I'll tell you that right now. I love Chris Chambers. Mike Gesicki is the number 1 tight end in Miami Dolphins franchise history for me. And statistically, he doesn't even match up with anyone else on my list. But it's who he was, a prolific catcher, a half a dozen one-handed catches. His personality, he was popular with the fans. He's popular in the NFL. People know he's a dangerous weapon, and we know he has the chance to be a very, very successful tight end, if not Pro Bowl caliber tight end with the correct offense. Even with us 2 years ago, he put up over 700 yards, which is basically his, he had 2 great, unbelievable years with the Dolphins. He only had 2,600 yards receiving in his career. In 5 years, 2,600 yards receiving, 18 touchdowns. That's a shame. That's a shame that's how low his numbers are when he should have had a couple 1,000-yard receivings, 1,000-yard receiving seasons. I even remember last year it was a late start to what he was doing. He should have had, not this past season, 2 years ago. Flores' last year, it was a late start, but then he got going. The year before that, too. There was a lot of games where it was like, what's going on? But, he's the most prolific catcher. One of the best hands for a tight end, I would say, in the NFL. Right now, Mike Gesicki has some of the best hands as a tight end. And the biggest personality. And, personally, I got to perform stand-up for him. So that's obviously exciting. Obviously, he knows who I am. That's kind of cool. Perform stand-up for him. He laughed. He enjoyed it. That's fun. Some other names that you could throw out there. Charles Clay, he had a couple good years. I thought about putting him in there, but I couldn't take out Randy McMichael, obviously, and I can't take out Gesicki. I know some of you guys will be like, why Gesicki? You know why. If you've been watching the Dolphins for the last 5 years, he's been such a big personality on the team. It just hurts that he's gone, and he was my favorite tight end. In all the years I've watched football, he was my favorite tight end, and I wanted him used way more. I wanted to use him a lot more. But unfortunately, it's a business, and this is how things work. But that's how I have it. Joe Rose, Keith Jackson, Anthony Fasano, Randy McMichael, Mike Gesicki. So, those are the top tight ends in history. I'm excited for what's to come. I'm going to obviously have a bunch of different comedians on the show and interview them about their specific teams and what they think is going to happen. We got a lot of draft news coming up. We got to see who's getting drafted first. We'll get into pre-draft episodes. I think things will be a little bit slower for right now. There's not going to be a lot of free agency things happening because people are going to wait till after the draft, which we have we're about a month away. And then, things could get moved around and we could see maybe some exciting things will happen for the Miami Dolphins. And then I'm going to be reaching out to some players and having some interviews and trying to get some players on here to interview and have just kind of a little behind the scenes of what it's like to learn some of these players that aren't being talked to from the media. Like, we get to know their personalities a little bit. Some fun questions, like questions about the game that we don't maybe understand that only a player would understand, or who they think is the best, or who they look up to, or who their inspirations were. Just a lot of fun ideas I have that I want to ask other players about. This is not a long episode, but I just want to put something out. Again, I'm trying to revamp this. I also, have some other ideas I want to do with this, but obviously I will be doing a lot of recaps for the Miami Dolphins on this page, and I also want to always talk about whatever news is going on in the NFL, and I also want to have live reaction to games when they come back on. Like maybe every Monday night we do a live recap, or you watch the game live with me, kind of how you do with the Mannings. I think that would be a cool thing I could set up, and we watch Monday Night Football together on this channel. So some things to look forward to, just kind of building it. If you've been here before, thanks for watching. If you've never joined this channel, please like and subscribe and join the channel. And if you guys have questions, you could always email at lenoci.michael@gmail.com what you want to know, what my take is on certain situations. We could talk about that. And we'll get into more deep stuff. Make sure you like and comment and let us know what you think in the comments or whatever. That doesn't make sense. Bye.